Now we're on to the 7th part of the Human Comedy Guide series, and today we're doing the Red Bull Ring with the Group 3 cars, and it's a BOP race, so that means you can't tune the car, you can't upgrade the cars. The only differences you can make is change the tyres, and you can put traction control on or off. So I don't own all the Group 3 cars in GT7 because there's a lot, but out of all of these ones here that I do own, I've picked out a few that I found to be better than the others in terms of fuel efficiency and lap times. So I'm going to list them from the ones that I feel are a bit better to the ones that aren't so good, and all of the other Group 3 cars that I've tried here just didn't come close in terms of fuel efficiency. Well, the best car on this event is kind of tricky to decide between the Hyundai Genesis Group 3 car and the Peugeot RCZ Group 3 car. I might say the RCZ's a little bit better because of the drivability of the car, maybe just a little bit better than the Hyundai, but the Hyundai is actually really fast and it's very, very good with its fuel efficiency. It's probably a little bit more fuel efficient than the RCZ as long as you're running it on fuel map 2. It's still quick on a fuel map 2. The RCZ you just run on fuel map 1. It's a little less fuel efficient, but it's quick. The next car on this list is actually pretty similar to the RCZ with its fuel efficiency and pace, and that's the Ferrari, but it's not as drivable. I found the Ferrari trying to flick itself into spins on the hairpins, which was just really weird, so I prefer the RCZ over that one. And then the Honda, it's a little less fuel efficient than the Ferrari, and its drivability it's quite loose to drive, but it's still really quick. And then this Jag. The Jag's actually super quick on its first fuel map, but it chews a lot of fuel. When you put it on fuel map number 3, it equals out with the other cars in terms of fuel efficiency. A little less than the other ones I've pointed out so far, but still really quick and drivable as well. And the last car I'm going to point out is the Merc. It's really good. You just have to put it on fuel map 2, because if you run it hard on fuel map number 1, you won't quite make to the 10 lap mark before having to pit. So for this video, I'm just going to drive the RCZ because I found it just to be the overall nicest car to drive and fast and also really good with its fuel. Also, whichever car you use, just run the soft tyres for the dry periods of the race. So to start this race off, we're just going to put traction control up to 1 and leave fuel map on number 1. And yeah, just for the start of this race, you're going to want to try get through the AI cars as quickly and as smoothly as possible, because just be aware the AI will just drive straight through you. They drive as if you're not even there most of the time. And yeah, if there's a couple of them surrounding you, you're going to get pushed wide, so just be extra careful with them. And just be as smooth as possible, get your lines together and pick up some pace. I'm also going to mention again that if you're running the AI on easy difficulty, you're going to have issues with the AI being way too quick. Currently easy difficulty is a bit broken, so put your AI difficulty on hard. That seems to be the most reliable one to run on at the moment. And yeah, just be a bit careful. Even on hard difficulty, sometimes the front AI, even the second one, takes off into the distance. Every single time you run the race, the AI will behave a little bit differently each time, and so they will go either faster or slower, so it might be worth just restarting a few times until the AI run a bit of a slower race. And you will have to be extra careful with quite a few corners. With the track limits here, you're going to easily pick up penalties, so I'll point those areas out shortly. Okay, so coming towards this last sector is where the main issues with track limits are. So just after this one here, you don't want to run too wide on exit. You don't want to go out to where the yellow things are. Just stay within that. And same with this last turn, you don't want to run out wide. Just stay within that second layer of the curb where the white bits are. That should be perfectly fine. If you go any wider than that, you're going to risk picking up 1 second, maybe more penalties. And same with this first turn as well. You got a sausage curb on the exit here. Just don't go too far beyond that sausage curb. 1 wheel beyond the sausage curb should be about where your limit should be. Otherwise, any further and you'll be picking up time penalties. Okay, so we're going to run through a bit of a track guide now. Coming down to the first turn, we're going to be looking out for a 100 board on the left there. We're going to brake on that, or just slightly before it right here. Using a little bit of this inside curb, carrying our speed through the turn, running up all the way to the sausage curb on exit, picking up our throttle gradually. As the tyres wear, might require a little bit more throttle control with the car moving around a bit more. Up to this next turn, we're also going to look for the 100 board. We're going to brake a little bit before this one. If we brake on it, it'll be a little bit too late. So just before it right there. And then this turn, we're going to be a bit careful on some cars, even this one. Carry a little bit of throttle just as you get through the apex, because if you just completely lift through there and you turn quite tight, the car tends to want to snap and spin out there. Some of the front engine, more stable cars don't have that issue. This turn, you want to brake just on or slightly before the 100 meter board right there, and then just carry our speed through over the curb here, gradually picking up our throttle. Don't touch that gravel on the outside there, because it'll just pull you off the track or spin you. You're going to have a hard time there. Hair brake a bit before the 50 board right there. Carry a little bit of speed, a little bit of trail braking. Use the inside curb as it grips up. Pick up the throttle around mid corner using this area on exit. Just halfway through this mid off-road, we can begin to turn in half throttle until towards the exit of that turn. We can pick up our throttle again using all of the track. Now for this turn, we're going to be looking just before the 50 board. We want to brake right here down to third gear, carry our speed through using all the track again. Brake just at the end of that red bit on the side there, using a bit of the inside curb, running all the way out to the exit here, using the second layer of curbs where the white bit is, and that is a lap of this track. Hopefully they'll help you go a little bit faster here. It wasn't too bad of a lap, 1 minute 30 flat. I have been running in the 129s. I haven't been concentrating too hard so far in this race, and the leader is still quite far ahead. And some of my attempts I would be in first at this point so far, so I'm not having the luckiest run so far with the AI, but also my pace has been slightly off. It is quite a tricky race to catch up to this guy on, so just wait until the pit stops come and he'll start dropping back a bit. So at this point in the race, it's around about lap 6. We've gone through the starting stage of the race. We've got the leader that's quite far ahead. We're still catching him. We may or may not catch him before the first pit stop. I have before. On this temp, it's not looking likely, but we'll see. At this point, we begin to think about the pit stop, which comes at lap 10. And when we come to the pit stop, we're just going to be replacing the tyres with more fresh racing soft tyres. And we're going to just take fuel, fill up the tank. And then after that, we're waiting for the rain. So we'll get to the pit stop. Let's see if I can catch this guy. I'll come back in a sec. So we've just come on to the 8th lap, and we're just behind this Mercedes in first here. Now, this guy tends to be a little bit broken, because as you can see, look at him just taking off into the distance. I've driven the Mercedes, that exact car that he's driving, and once I've gotten to this point, when I'm side by side with him, he just takes off. And remember, we were in the same car, so we should have exactly the same performance. There's no adjustable performance in this race. I've just gone super deep into that turn. But yeah, it's a little bit broken, I think, that he just takes off. He's got so much straight line speed. The only place you can catch him is through the turn. So from after this turn and towards the end of the lap, that's the only opportunity you really have to catch this guy. So here we go. Our only real opportunity is going to be at this point of the track. We could try throw a dive between now and the first turn, and after that, he's just going to take off. So we're going to try sneak through. He actually went really slow through that turn, thankfully, so I can try do my best to have some nice corners between now and the next, or the back straight, because he's going to start catching us. So he is a second and a half back right now, but just wait until we get to the straight, and he's probably going to start catching up quite quickly. So we're going to go through the first turn now, try have a good exit. Wasn't too bad, and now he's 2 seconds back because we went through a turn. We're way quicker through the turns. 2.1 seconds, and he's already starting to catch us. Now it's going to go under 2 seconds. 1.9, it's going to go 1. He catches me so quickly on the straights. Thankfully, our gap is pretty big now, so we don't have to worry about him. We should reach the turn section of the track before he manages to catch us on the straight. So now we're going to just start lap 10, a little bit sideways. We're going to start overlapping our first back markers, and this is also the lap that we will pit in. So at the end of this lap we will come in, take the soft tyres, fill up the tank, and after that we'll start thinking about rain. The car can begin to become a little unstable in these longer turns like the entrance, so I would suggest just to carry a little bit of throttle into the turn just to stop the rear from sliding out on you. If you just drop the throttle into the turn, it tends to let go. So if you just hold a little bit of throttle entering the turn, you'll be alright. Let's go into the pits and grab a bit of fuel and tyres. It actually surprises me, nobody else has entered the pits. Okay, one other guy's entered the pits. On my last attempt, the guy that was leading also pitted on the same lap as me, on lap 10, so he didn't do it that time around, but we shouldn't have to worry, we should still be fine. And now we can see that guy who is leading is now pitting, so he just pitted a lap later than us that time. We're at lap 15 now, and you'll begin to start seeing the sky going grey, and you know what that means. Becoming overcast, and the rain is on its way. So it's a lap later on lap 16, and you can begin to look towards the bottom right there. You can see some rain's beginning to sneak onto my radar. Now towards the end of lap 16, you'll begin to see the rain on our windscreen, but if you look on the radar, there's not much rain there, so we don't have to worry about anything just yet. It's around lap 19 or 20 where the heavy stuff starts coming in. And one thing I noticed, if you saw that guy just there, at this point, for some reason the AI well, not all of them, but some of them start driving incredibly slowly, so just be careful with those ones. On my first attempt, I think I ran straight into the back of one of them because they almost parked it in the middle of the straight. So yeah, that was just a little bit weird. Just back to the radar real quick, you can see all the patches of rain are going by, but further towards the right is a massive wall of heavy rain which is coming in just about a lap's time. Okay, so we're on to lap 19 now, so this is the lap where we start to see the heavy rain. Now, on my previous attempt, I tried to run another lap. So I went through lap 19 and I tried to get through lap 20, but by lap 20, the track was already too slippery to drive on. So I've learned from that run that I need to be pitting on this lap for wet tyres, because by the time you get through halfway through lap 20, the track is undrivable on slicks. So yep, the rain's only just arrived. I know you'd probably think, oh, I could probably last another lap. That's what I thought too, until I got halfway through and I couldn't keep the car on the track anymore. So what I'm going to do is play it safe, come into the pits lap 19 and grab my heavy wet tyres, because it gets to that stage where those tyres are needed. Also going to make sure I fill up the tank while I'm in the pits. Now we're back out there on the track and the rain is just getting heavier and heavier. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend trying to push that extra lap out, because it just becomes way too slippery. And you will have to readjust your braking points and everything, because it's obviously less grip on the track, so you just need to take your braking points back a step. You can already see everybody else beginning to enter the pit lane because they know it's time for wet tyres. And then the next stage is the track becoming very oily and slippery on the racing line. So I experimented a wee bit on my previous run, braking on the racing line and then braking on the inside of the track in the braking zones. Every time I broke on the racing line, I went flying off the corner. So like right now, oh yeah, just like that. So it's at that point already, not even a lap into the rain, and we need to start adjusting our lines to the rainy conditions. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to come to the inside of the track where there's less oil building up on the track, and we're going to actually make the turn. And again, coming to the next turn, we're going to come towards the inside. It's going to be a little bit more grip for us there, just to brake and slow the car down. We're going to cross that slippery line, just try and get off of that regular racing line to give yourself a little bit more extra grip. And as we come to these longer turns, we're going to just come towards the outer side where we can find a little bit more grip there. We're going to cross back over that racing line. It's a bit slippery, and then do the same thing for this turn. Just be cautious because we're on the racing line at the moment. A little wider, a little bit more grip. Then the same thing right here. We get a little wider. We're going to have to be gentle because we're on that racing line again. Last turn's a little bit tricky because you kind of have to stay on that line. Just very, very slippery. Just go very slowly through there. Gradually pick up the throttle and we're on our way again. So remember last time I broke on the inside, this time I'm going to brake on the outside just before where I usually would, and look at us, completely missed the turn. So just keep that in mind, don't use the normal racing line. So I think let's just run through a bit of a lap with this wet weather to see what we should be doing. Come to the inside here, brake a little earlier than we usually would, and on the inside line just to make sure we don't go flying off the corner. Just be very cautious on throttle because we're on that slippery line. Just coming towards the inside to find a little bit more grip, maybe a little bit of short shifting as well to gain that traction. Once we pick up speed, we don't have too many issues of crossing the line. As we get back to the corner though, we want to find that extra grip so we don't go flying off the turn. Braking a little bit earlier than we usually would again. That goes for all corners. Got a very slow car in front of me, just be cautious around them. Now for this next turn, there's actually something else you need to be aware of. There's the outside line, which is obviously a bit slippery, but on the very inside there's puddles, and you aquaplane over them and they'll make you spin out. So you're going to try to sort of stick towards the middle of the track here, and you should be alright to make the turn like that. That's not too bad, and you might cross over the line a bit. Come from the outside back to the inside, and then we're going to come up to the next turn. Just be cautious as we cross the line, just to use a little bit of the outer line, put our outer wheels on off the oily line, give us a bit more grip. Just gentle on throttle. Same for this turn, because if we go across onto the race line, the car just pushes wide, so just make sure you use the outer line. Now for these next two turns, you don't have much of a choice but to use the racing line, so just brake a little bit earlier. Car might slip a wee bit just like that, and just go a bit slower than usual through here. All the other cars have to do it as well, so you need to do it too. Very cautious at the final turn, coming back to where the traction is. And the thing with the AI, they just drive normal lines, so they go extra slow. And just one more thing or two things I want to point out is it's just disappeared, but the gap between me and second place is 1 minute and 40 seconds now, and on the radar you can see the rain is just about to end. So shortly, very shortly, as soon as the rain ends, basically the lap after, we go back onto soft tires. I can't remember if I said it before, but before, when I was braking on the inside here, I went too far to the inside and I did brake on those puddles. Like, yeah, just over there, you can't really see it unless you actually brake on it. And I did have that before when I was experimenting, and I've lost about 10 to 15 seconds from that. So yeah, that's just something to note. Right, and just like that, the rain has ended, and we already have a car attempting to take his wet tyres off, so it happens very quickly. I probably could have just pitted on that lap and put them on. It would have been a little bit slippery, so I'm going to take another lap just for the track to dry that a little bit more, and at the end of this lap, we'll come get some dry tyres. Oh, and by the way, at this point as well, the lap that the rain ends, you can go back to the racing line. There's enough grip for you to use it now. Right, it's time to come in and put some dry tyres on. And again, we'll just go with the soft tyres. That's perfectly fine. That'll take us to the end of the race. And very, very important, just out this pit lane, it is still very wet. Just be careful right here. There's a wet patch. Just be very gentle on throttle until you get onto the dry line, and now you can begin to accelerate. If you accelerate, if you hammer the throttle, going across that wet patch, you're gonna spin. That happened to me on my first attempt. So at this point, you have to just stay right on that dry line, because as soon as you go onto any of the wet patches, you lose all your grip, and you're either going to spin or get pushed off the track with understeer. And we still have other cars going extremely slowly, so I'm assuming they're either still on wet tyres or they just don't really know what to do. Coming into this turn, the dry line actually caught me out a little bit at the start, because it actually tightens up. So there's a wet patch on the exit there where I'd usually take the line. Just make sure you tighten that corner up a little bit so you don't run wide onto the wet patch there, because that'll push you off the track as well. And make sure you stay off all of the curbs, because they'll stay mostly slippery even right up till the end of the race. You can use the inside curbs as the outside curbs, where if you're accelerating, once you get onto them, you'll just loop around and spin. And we're 15 minutes to go now. At this point, there will be no more rain, so you just got to wait for the track to dry up a bit more, and you'll slowly get faster and faster again. Also, just be careful if you're going to overtake an AI in these conditions. Just find the right place to overtake them. Don't do it through turns, because you'll end up going onto that wet line, and while you're turning, that's again just going to slip you straight off the track. Oh, and yeah, that's what happens if you brake on a curb, by the way, so yeah, avoid that too. And some of the AI, even the guy that is in second, at some point will come back into the pits, because those guys are still running on their wet tyres, so they'll eventually come back onto their softs and they'll drop even further behind. Currently we're a minute 10 seconds ahead. That'll grow quite a bit shortly. There he goes, he's entered the pits, so it'll be interesting to see what the gap will become after this. And towards the end of the race, the car becomes a bit of a mess to drive. It's very snappy and tries to kill you everywhere from basically here to the end of the lap, so just this corner, be careful. You'll see the car just wants to slip on me. It does that pretty much on every corner from here to the last corner. So just enter the turns a little slower. Just carry a little bit of throttle into the turn, just a little bit, to keep the car as stable as you can, because the car does not really like these conditions at all. Particularly this last turn right here. As soon as I hit the bottom there, it just flicks out on me. So you have to be prepared to catch it every time. And we should be on the last lap on this next lap. So we've got quite a dominant lead at the moment. I think we're leading by quite well over a lap now. Just got to get through one more lap cleanly, and that'll be our race. We'll take the final turn for the final time. Try not spin it, and there we go. That's a 1 hour at Red Bull Ring with quite a dominant victory. Here you go, this is the results of the race. So only 2 cars behind us finished a lap behind, and everybody else finished 2 laps behind. So that was quite a good victory. And if you're struggling a lot with the turn in oversteer and the car snapping a lot on you, like this was towards the end of the race, if you're struggling with that, I'd suggest run with one of the front engine cars, like maybe the Hyundai Genesis or the Jaguar, or even that Mercedes. Those cars all felt a little bit more stable, but they're a little bit more punchy on the throttle. Just be aware, if you're using the Merc, you'll probably have to run that on fuel map 2. I think if you're running the Hyundai, you'll also have to run that on fuel map 2, and with the Jaguar, run that on fuel map 3. They're all quick on those fuel maps, just use them so you don't run out of fuel before you reach the end of the race. It wasn't my quickest race either. I was lacking a lot of concentration throughout that race, but even then, still finishing quite far ahead. It's still very doable. We've just got one more race to cover, and I should have that up by tomorrow. If not, then probably the next day. So we're nearly done with this series, and hopefully soon we'll get some more content to do some more guides on. If you guys find any other Group 3 cars that are really good on their fuel and handle this race very well, then just feel free to let us know in the comments. All suggestions are welcome. If you guys want to keep up to date with all sorts of sim racing news and updates, then check out simrace247.com. That's a perfect place for you to go. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the final part of the Human Comedy Guide series.